Plato lived from roughly 428 to 348 BCE in Athens. Born into an aristocratic family, he became a devoted student of Socrates. When Athens executed Socrates in 399 BCE for corrupting the youth and impiety, Plato was devastated. He abandoned any political ambitions and founded the Academy, the first university in the Western world, dedicating his life to philosophy. Plato wrote dialogues, dramatic conversations featuring Socrates as the main character. This format makes it tricky to separate Socrates' actual views from Plato's own, especially since Plato never speaks in his own voice. Early dialogues probably reflect the historical Socrates, while later ones use Socrates as a mouthpiece for Plato's developed philosophical system. How to read him. Start with accessible early dialogues. Apology presents Socrates' trial defense and explains his philosophical mission. Crito shows him in prison, refusing escape because it would violate his principles. Euthyphro examines what makes something holy through a conversation about a father-son prosecution case. These are short, dramatic, and introduce Plato's method of philosophical questioning. Then tackle Republic, his masterpiece. It's long but covers everything: justice, politics, education, art, and the nature of reality. The middle dialogues, including Symposium on Love and Phaedo on Death and Immortality, present his mature philosophy. The late dialogues like Parmenides and Theaetetus get technical and even criticize his own earlier theories. Save these for when you're familiar with his main ideas. The Socratic method. Before diving into doctrines, understand the method. Socrates approaches someone claiming expertise about courage, justice, or virtue. Through careful questioning, he exposes contradictions in their beliefs. This isn't just about winning arguments, it's about achieving self-awareness of ignorance, which is the first step toward genuine wisdom. Socrates claimed he knew nothing except that he knew nothing. While others falsely believed they possessed knowledge, Socrates recognized his ignorance, making him paradoxically wiser. The oracle at Delphi declared no one wiser than Socrates, which he interpreted as recognition of this humble self-awareness. The theory of forms. This is Plato's signature idea. He asked, why do different things all count as beautiful, just, or good? How do we recognize instances despite their variety? His answer, beyond the physical world exists a realm of eternal, unchanging, perfect forms or ideas. There's a form of beauty, justice, horse, triangle, and so on. Physical objects are imperfect copies of these forms. Consider triangles. You can draw many different triangles, but none is perfectly triangular. Lines have width, angles are slightly off. Yet mathematicians reason about the perfect triangle. This perfect triangle that all particular ones imperfectly resemble is the form of triangle, existing in an eternal realm accessible only through reason. The physical world constantly changes. It's about becoming. Forms are eternal and unchanging. They constitute pure being. This creates a hierarchy. The world we perceive through senses is less real than the world of forms. True knowledge concerns forms. Opinion concerns physical things. The form of the good sits atop this hierarchy, the source of being and intelligibility for all other forms, like the sun that makes vision and life possible. The Allegory of the Cave. This famous passage from Republic illustrates everything. Picture prisoners chained in a cave facing a wall since childhood. Behind them burns a fire, and people carry objects casting shadows on the wall. The prisoners see only shadows and mistake them for reality. One prisoner is freed and turned toward the fire. The light hurts. He sees actual objects casting shadows, realizes shadows are mere copies. Dragged outside into sunlight, he's blinded. Gradually his eyes adjust. He sees reflections in water, then objects, then stars and moon, finally the sun itself, the source of light and life. If he returns to the cave, he seems foolish to those still chained, unable to see well in darkness. If he tries freeing others, they might kill him, preferring their familiar illusions. The cave represents the visible world we perceive through senses. Shadows are appearances and illusions. The journey upward is the soul's ascent to the intelligible realm through philosophy. The outside world represents the realm of forms. The sun is the form of the good. The freed prisoner is the philosopher who understands reality and has an obligation to educate others despite their resistance. Justice and the ideal state. Republic begins asking, what is justice? But expands into designing an ideal city. Socrates suggests examining justice in a city before examining it in an individual, since cities are larger and easier to see. The ideal city has three classes: producers, farmers, craftsmen, provide material needs. Auxiliaries, warriors, defend the city. Philosopher kings rule with wisdom. These correspond to three parts of the soul. Appetite desires physical pleasures, spirit seeks honor and responds emotionally, and reason pursues truth. Justice in the city means each class performs its proper function without interfering with others. Justice in the individual means reason rules, spirit supports it, and appetite obeys. The just person has internal harmony. The unjust person suffers conflict and misery. Philosopher kings must understand the forms, especially the form of the good. Only with this knowledge can they make wise decisions. They live communally without private property or nuclear families to prevent corruption and ensure their only interest is the common good. Plato distrusted democracy, having seen it execute Socrates. He believed most people live in ignorance, making decisions based on opinion rather than knowledge. Democracy gives equal power to those who understand nothing about governance and those few who understand justice itself. Education and the ladder of love. Education isn't putting knowledge into empty minds, but turning the soul from darkness toward light, from becoming toward being. Future guardians start in childhood with carefully selected stories and music to shape character. Mathematics comes next, because mathematical objects draw the mind toward eternal truths. At 30, select individuals begin dialectic, philosophical questioning that tests assumptions through rational argument. After years of practical experience and philosophical training, at 50, they finally become rulers. In Symposium, Plato presents the ladder of love. Love begins with attraction to one beautiful body, then recognizing beauty in all bodies, then loving beautiful souls more than bodies, then appreciating beauty in activities and knowledge, until finally perceiving beauty itself, the form of beauty. This ascent from physical to eternal reflects Plato's broader philosophy that physical beauty is merely a stepping stone to eternal beauty. Art and self-criticism. Plato notoriously proposed banishing poets from his ideal city. Physical objects are already copies of forms. Art copies physical objects, making it twice removed from truth. A painting of a bed copies a particular bed, which imitates the form of bed. Moreover, poetry appeals to emotions rather than reason, strengthening the soul's irrational parts. Yet Plato himself was a brilliant literary artist. His dialogues are dramatic masterpieces. Perhaps he demonstrates how art can serve truth rather than obscure it. In later dialogues like Parmenides, Plato subjects his own theory of forms to devastating criticism. If forms are separate from physical things, how do things participate in them? These objections show Plato grappling honestly with problems in his own theory. His final work, Laws, presents a more realistic political vision than Republic, acknowledging that philosopher kings are unlikely and that laws must guide citizens toward virtue. Why Plato matters. Plato established philosophy's central questions: what is justice? What is knowledge versus opinion? What is ultimately real versus mere appearance? How should we live? How should society be organized? These remain alive because Plato articulated them so powerfully. His influence shaped Christian theology through Neoplatonism, sparked endless political debates, influenced rationalist philosophy, emphasizing reason over experience, and established that abstract thinking matters more than immediate sense experience. Even philosophers who reject his conclusions engage with his questions. The key to understanding Plato is recognizing his fundamental conviction. There's more to reality than what we perceive with our senses. True wisdom requires turning away from the changing physical world toward eternal truths accessible only through reason. Philosophy isn't just intellectual exercise, but preparation for living well and governing justly.